Well, thank you very much. And literally on deck, we're going to keep the baseball theme going as we've been talking about for the last 2 hours. Good friend of mine, I can't believe he played just that many years ago. We'll just leave it at that. Billy Gasparino, who was an all Big 12 conference performer for us, member of our Hall of Fame. And now I didn't see the new, I guess it's not a new title, but vice president there with the Dodgers, director of amateur scouting. Do you have a corner office now, or what? What are they doing?
I wish. I was hoping there was more bells and whistles that came with that new title, but not really. It was just kind of a VP on the business card, and that was about it.
I just wondered. I mean, maybe you have a better view of the stadium now than you used to have. Who knows?
I wish.
But hey,
good to be here, though, Tom.
I'm glad you could join us here, and I wanted to get you on before the draft, but I'm glad I waited a little bit because little did I know that the Dodgers would reach into the Oklahoma State hat, if you will, and draft in the 11th round Justin Robleski, who didn't pitch the last third of the season with a bad arm, had Tommy John. And my question to you before we went on the air, I mean, you guys knew that, right, before you drafted him?
Yeah. So what we do is, we kind of take the long view on it, and we know it's a 12 to 14 month rehab, and we almost kind of like bank a player away once their talent level feels like a real gain in certain parts of the draft. So we'll kind of send Justin to our rehab facilities and almost not forget about him, because we'll spend a lot of time with him on the rehab, but forget about him as a prospect until probably around this time next year. And then it almost becomes like a bonus draft for us next year. And a guy with that kind of talent, we were really excited to get in that 11th round. It's left-handed, it's power stuff, and we kind of knew it was just more talent than usual for that round.
And he was a guy that we've seen come through here every year virtually. A guy who maybe pitches himself into trouble, but he could strike guys out, long story short, and get out of that trouble on his own. You didn't have to go to the bullpen. And to give him that much credit, I mean, he could do that.
Yeah. No, and that's what's really like what we started to shift to, like at the major league level. Strikeouts are kind of king. Swing and miss is really valued. So when we see a college player with that skill, we're kind of hoping we can tweak the delivery, tweak the arm action, maybe even tweak the usage of the stuff to get him in the zone more, and just take advantage of that kind of ability to strike people out, because that's definitely the major league game right now.
Do you know at this point whether he's already signed already, or can you say that without having it in front of you?
Yeah, no, he's agreed to terms. He's actually in Arizona today, going through a physical, and I think as long as the physical works out over the next 48 hours, he'll probably be signed in a Dodger by Friday.
Okay, well that's some of these things take a while and some happen overnight, and which leads me to this: 15 more rounds this year than we talked last year when we were talking draft. Not specifically good for the Dodgers. We'll get to that in a moment, but better for baseball in general that you brought that many more people in.
I think so. I mean, we had a real void. We noticed the void after only going 5 rounds last year at our lower levels. We just didn't have the same depth of our prospects, and so we were very happy for the 20 rounds. We thought it was a good amount given the contraction of the minor leagues, and kind of like as everything is reshuffling, put in 20 players, see how it looks, and then start to adjust the rounds, going forward, depending if that's the right amount or not.
Did you guys come out from the Dodgers' perspective? Did you come out with what you thought? And I got to throw this in. You can't make this judgment because you never know who they are, but we hear more stories about guys who were 35, 36, 37 round at one time who turned into be stars. I guess obviously Major League Baseball didn't get that.
Yeah, I do think that's the sad piece of it. There's going to be less opportunities for players. I don't know if it's going to shift towards the independent ball route, and you have to kind of like go prove your way through that. But there is going to be less opportunities. There's plenty of good players that are drafted in those rounds. I think it just really came down to a financial piece for the ownership group, that they just, they wanted to save some money and kind of like make this thing smaller and more exact, and that's what we ended up with. And it's kind of sad, because I do think less kids are getting opportunities.
Who benefited or was hurt the most? I mean, were high school kids hurt because there were not 17, 18 more rounds, or did they benefit because maybe more colleges went after them in earnest?
I think really it hurt the most was kind of like your college seniors or college juniors that were right on that talent line. So someone like Carson Musker, who has talent and produced and had a good year, he's like less likely to get an opportunity, where in the past someone would have had a job for him and someone would have had a chance. So I think it's those type of guys that are really getting impacted here.
Was it like last year, like a free agent signing was $20,000 or whatever it was, or no more than $20,000? Do we have the same setup now if you're not drafted?
Yep, same rules. 20K max. We've probably signed 4 or 5 guys in that range, including Max Hewitt here from Oklahoma State in the last couple of days.
I didn't know that. How about that? Good.
Yeah, and that's where, if you can catch or play shortstop, but there's some premium positions that I think still are needed. But it's the same rules. It's the 20,000, and it's really for guys who really just want to come out and play.
You'll like Maxie, I know. When you get him and you start seeing his value, I'm a big fan of his and has been since he's been here, because of the fact that no matter where you put him, you get maximum effort and pretty much maximum production, and you don't fall off no matter where you put him. I mean, this guy goes all the time. So I mean, I'm sure if I'm saying that, your professional guys knew all about him.
Yeah, I mean, Heath Holliday really loved him. Had a close relationship with him, and said the same. Like his versatility, his work ethic, his character, his ability to produce a bunch of positions, we really valued, and it kind of was a really good fit. Looking
at the Major League Baseball the way it is now, and if you had the answer to this, you would be more than a vice president with the Dodgers. You might be the commissioner of baseball. What is going on with all these injuries, for crying out loud, especially the pitchers?
Yeah, I think you're seeing the impact of not having a full season of competitive play. The volume of throwing these guys do year in, year out, and I think the way their body adapts to it is really important. And so they just didn't have that volume last year, and now they're coming back and trying to produce a lot of innings and a lot of pitches, and they can't. And I do think the second factor is, I do think for lack of a better term, the sticky substance that has been banned now, I do think it made it less stressful to grip the ball and less stress on your forearms, and I think some of the pitchers are really having a hard time with that.
Not going to have you implicate anyone. I don't want to put you in a bad spot, but I mean, I'm guessing from your comment that there probably was more to the sticky stuff than we gave credit to.
I think so. I mean, it's hard to know exactly, and it can be hard to quantify at times. But there's a lot of Major League Baseball was using it, and I think there's different versions that are really effective. To the point where, I think it was making a major impact. It had to be, or Major League Baseball wouldn't have had it made a change halfway through the year. So I think it's a pretty big deal.
Well, if they want more offense, they probably have gotten more offense since that ruling, I think.
Yep.
I mean, just checking scores every day. So it seems like that's happening. There probably just as many strikeouts, though, which drives me nuts. I want to ask you this. Well, you're certainly not old school, and because you're not that old, but you're of a couple of years prior to some of these newcomers now. We got all this stuff going on in Major League Baseball. We got the analytics, and we got the shifts, and we've got the sticky stuff, and we got 7-inning doubleheaders, and we got guys starting at second base. What in the world is going on here?
Yeah, no, I think you make a good point. I mean, I think I think the intent in some cases is like, hey, let's make the game more younger generation friendly, and we want action. And so the problem is a lot of the rules and the way people have taken advantage of the old rules have made it harder to hit. And there's a bunch of different factors on why. And so I think what Major League Baseball is trying to do is figure out, like, how do we make it, like, fun, entertaining, and kind of, like, appeal to the younger generation without totally losing the old school rules. And so it's definitely a new game. People are continuing to, like, take advantage of every rule possible to give themselves an advantage. And so it'll be interesting. I think this new, the new CBA coming up this winter, and the Major League Baseball really kind of quest to make it more action-packed. It'll be interesting what changes they make.
In your estimation, what survives out of all this stuff that we just talked about when the new contract comes up?
That's a good question. I think the ban on sticky substances will stay, because I think that's already showing that's producing more balls in play. I think they'll make a push for the automatic strike zone, because I hate it, because I love the human element to this whole thing, but I think they can control the strike zone, and they can kind of make it smaller or bigger, which would produce or less in the offense. So it just gives them a little more control if they have an automatic strike zone. I think that stays, and I think there'll be some kind of ban on shifts. I don't know exactly how they're going to word it, but I think they'll make it a more traditional look where the fielders can stand.
There might be some people out of jobs. I mean, what about all these analytics guys that if they do that and they say you got to have two guys on each side of second base, and you can't be in the outfield grass, you have to be on the infield. A lot of those numbers kind of go out the spray charts go out the window, don't they?
A little bit. I mean, it will make it more challenging. Now, I think there's always a place for having people thinking about how to, like, take advantage of the new rules, and I probably can't even imagine what that would be. But there'll always be an analyzing of the numbers and to try to gain a competitive advantage. But I do think we're going to see some shift, some changes coming up here.
What about my favorite subject, the DH? Is that a foregone conclusion now, or what?
I think so. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like that's a major bargaining chip for the players, and if they can have a DH, that creates more jobs for more people. So I think that'll be part of the compromise. Is my guess is that somehow we get a DH on both sides. I don't know. I love the National League strategy, so I hope there's some kind of caveat to it where I've heard, like, hey, you can have a DH as long as you keep the starting pitcher in. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it goes to regular rules. I've heard a couple of different variations that I hope they use, because I do think the strategy part of this is fun to watch, and it makes baseball great.
Hell, you might come out of retirement and be a DH.
Yeah, or Matt Holliday would be getting his cleats back on, I'm sure.
How would you like to have that guy still coming to bat 4 times a game? That'd be pretty good, huh?
Yeah, there'll definitely be some of those older hitters coming back, and or at least they're extending their careers.
It depends on which side of the fence you're on, but do you like the 3-hitter rule for pitchers? I mean, if you're hitting a guy pretty hard, you like him to be in there for 2 more. But you think that'll hang around?
I think that'll hang. I think that's gone over pretty smooth, and it hasn't made a major impact, but just enough where, at least it can't be. How it gets. It used to be in September with the 40-man rosters, like you'd have a different pitcher every batter from like the 7th inning on. It was horrible product to watch. So I do think it's going to stay. I think that one stays.
What about that expansion of the roster? What are the rules this year when September rolls around? Can you still bring guys up?
You can bring guys up. It's a limit. I think they're limited to 28. Don't quote me on that one, but I heard 28 is going to be the limit to try to combat some of this.
Because the dugouts couldn't hold as many people in years past.
Yeah, we wouldn't even have enough room in our locker room. It was crazy.
How are things with the Dodgers? I mean, you guys, you're locked in a hell of a battle there with San Francisco. You're in the middle of a 4-game series. You split the first 2, I guess. the last two nights, but it looks like that's coming down to the wire. San Diego continues to kind of hang out there on the periphery, that looking for one of you guys to stumble. But it looks like one heck of a battle from here down to the wire here.
I think so. I mean, I think as you're seeing now, the Giants are real. I think they have a very good offense. Their veteran players are playing very well. I think both teams are struggling on the pitching depth part. So we're trying to hang on there. I mean, we have Corey Seager coming back. I think Kershaw is hopefully back in August. I think that we can kind of take a final step through some of these injuries and get our full team back. I like our chances, but I do think it's going to be really hard.
Yeah, with the Giants if they continue to play, and the Padres keep the heat on both of you. I mean, they already won the first game today, and are winning the second game against Atlanta, so they're not going away. And it would appear that, as everybody likes to say, you're going to have one winner in the division, and the two wild cards are coming out of your division. Yeah,
I think that's very realistic. I mean, our three teams are maybe the three best in the National League. The Padres are super talented and always dangerous. So I think it's going to be a fun finish here. I really do.
Do you think they got better when you left the Padres after director of scouting? Is that a reflection of your timing or what?
They definitely did better in a lot of ways. I don't know about amateur scouting. I'll leave that up to someone else. But they're really good right now. I give them credit. Yeah,
we can't blame you, right? I mean, we can't blame you that they weren't.
Hopefully not.
Well, we could, because you're not there to defend yourself. Hey, what about this trade deadline stuff? Is this something we make up more outside looking in? Every year, oh my goodness, these teams are going to get rid of this, and they're buyers and they're sellers, and then we get to the trade deadline, there are more moves after the trade deadline than there are before.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of teams are treat it as it's a very expensive time to buy, and so a lot of the 7 teams try to get greedy, and so there's a lot more inaction, especially the last couple of years than you would think. You might get a desperate team or two who just kind of does it and pays premium for a rental or a guy they can get to help them down the stretch, but it's really so many of these front offices think alike now that most of them are unwilling to do that. And it just becomes a lot more inactive than you would think.
Again, I think that it just makes for good attention, and because ESPN runs it to the end, they're going to have a show to the deadline and a countdown. And last couple of years it didn't happen, and there were more moves made after that in August, middle August, than there were prior to the deadline.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that same trend probably happens.
You liking it? I mean, you're in a heck of an organization. You talk about wanting to get younger. Can you get younger people to come to the Dodger games? And I'm only going on the front row that I see in the back, behind home plate, and Mary Hart's there, and that's not necessarily the younger generation. With all due respect to Mary, when she was from Oklahoma, but are you guys trying to go after that younger fan too?
I think so. I mean, I know it's without being directly involved in the business side and marketing, they talk about it a lot. It's just a little bit harder because, the attention spans are shorter. Everything's social media. So they've really tried to really boost up that social media presence and find other ways to connect. And they're trying. It's hard. It's still especially Dodger Stadium. There's an hour and a half traffic to get in. It's a 3.5-hour game and an hour and a half to get home. So you really have to be willing to put in 6 or 7 hours to kind of experience the whole thing.
And it's always good to, and I imagine you guys are gonna be on the tube all the time down the stretch, because I think those Western Division games are going to be, as I said, head to head, and they'll be everybody's front and center on TV down the stretch. But that park, I mean, it just looks, Billy, it looks like it's never changed over the years, and it looks always pristine, at least on TV.
No, it's unbelievable. You need to come out one of these days. It's and we just put in $100 million in our center field plaza for the All-Star game that got delayed during the COVID year.
Right.
But it's unbelievable. It's like old feel, but kind of new amenities, and everything is a classic look, and the upkeep is tremendous. I think it's even becoming more and more valued as all these other new stadiums come up everywhere. It's so unique and traditional.
Last thing, and it's certainly a immediate topic. We were talking before, I think, about Billy McKinney coming your way now from the Mets, and tell me a little bit about what the Mets get from him.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting trade because the Mets are getting Carlos Racon, who's like a young Latin American power hitting prospect that they should be able to like control and put in Double-A and give a few more years of development and maybe really kind of hit big on. And we get someone who can kind of fill a hole in, a left-hand bat, kind of, multi-position outfielder who's actually like probably performed a little better than his stat line suggests and been a little unlucky. So I think it was like a good match, and I know our guys were excited to get McKinney and kind of see what he can do here down the stretch. And
I know catching you cold here, but before we cut you loose, any Cowboys in the Dodger chain that are making moves now that former Cowboys that we should be able to follow?
Man, we don't have many anymore. I'm trying to think through anyone. I can't think. Hopefully the new crew of Robleski and Hewitt are the guys, but no one stands out yet. It's a hard game down there, so I can't think of anyone right now.
And when you cut some levels off like they did this year, some guys lost their jobs. Obviously, I mean they had.
Yeah, and that's what's happened. Some of those guys have lost their jobs over the last couple of years, and so always rooting for them in other organizations, even though we don't have them. And I know there's a lot of guys doing well in other orgs, but not so much. We don't really have any with the Dodgers.
I'd like to come out and see that new plaza that you're talking about. Do you know anybody at the Dodgers I could call and get some tickets if I? Oh yeah.
Yeah, we probably know a few. Come on out, Tom. Get on that plane.
Hey, if I pay for the plane out, surely I can call your number and get a couple of tickets left for me when I get there.
We got you. Come on out. You really need to do it. It's really an unbelievable experience.
All right, buddy. Hey, I appreciate the time as always. Good to check in with you, and we might do it one more time right before the World Series and see what's going on there. And best of luck to the Dodgers the rest of the way. I appreciate your time, bud.
Okay. No, anytime, Tom. Thank you.
Okay,
Have a
bud.
good one.
Yes, sir. You too. Right. That's Billy Gasparino.